welcome to episode 2 of 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast. Little mini episodes with me, your host, Tandy Candler. I'm hanging out with you, and I wanted to talk to you about something crazy. I wanted to talk to you about worshiping false idols, idolatry, things of that nature. And then, worshiping people that have put themselves into self-appointed guruism, people that call themselves masters, and worshiping these self-appointed teachers and these people that claim to know the truth and would have you follow them anywhere to the ends of the earth if it meant proving their point. This kind of shit is scary. So join me, your host, Tanny Candler, here on 21st Century Rocker Mom Podcast on my YouTube for these mini shorts and these deep dives about things we're going to talk about. I teased a little bit on my Instagram about the Beatles and going to India and going on a retreat with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the 1960s. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of what sent the Beatles all the way back to England, because something in India did not sit right with the Fab Four and others. We're going to talk about that. So like I'll say, when it came to idolatry and when it comes to idolatry and worshiping fake idols and worshiping just kind of people, even the Bible, and everyone kind of knows that I am not a religious kind of girl. I'm more spiritual. That's why I'm sitting here like in a midsummer outfit looking like I'm going to take a trip around the goddamn maypole and then stuff a guy in a fucking bear suit. Holy shit, it looks crazy around here. But really, truly and honestly, even the Bible spoke of idolatry. And I believe it is in the second of the 10 Commandments where they're being delivered to Moses and they're handed down and they're saying, "You shall not make for yourself an idol." And that's Exodus 24, not 24, but 20:4, I'm not Bible-y, but you know me. I know the Bible. It's another book that I've read. Even John Calvin, who was kind of against these things, he wrote himself that human nature, and I'm reading this, it's his quote, "Human nature is a perpetual factory of idols." And the thing is, don't follow the person that's holding the light or the person that's holding the candle. Don't follow that person. Follow the light. Follow the spark. I've always been told my whole life to follow the spark. Maybe it's because I'm a candler and I'm a candle maker. Don't follow the candle holder. Follow the candle. Follow the light. Follow the spark. Follow that thing. Don't follow that person, that fake person, that thing that's made up, that person that wants you to believe that they have this imaginary power. Because these people and these people that hold the candle, so to speak, only have this power and they only possess these magical powers when and if you hand them to them. Like I say, this happens to so many people. Like, for instance, this week. Woo! This week, His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, was in the news for something I thought was absolutely freaking pedophilistic. And I will say this as a Buddhist person, someone who has studied Buddhism a lot of her life when I didn't go to church and do the Christianity thing, because I did that too. I've been there. Not all paths go from A to B, and some people need to go through the whole alphabet. And yes, I am a devout Buddhist. However, do I follow the Dalai Lama? No. Do I think he's a pedophile? Oh, yes, I do. Anyone who sits on stage, a human person, sitting there so self-entitled that you would stick your tongue out and expect a young boy of like 7 or 8 years old, these are my kids' ages, to suck your tongue, to sit there and expect that out of a child, there's something wrong with you. And excuse my English, old English, but you're a fucking nonce. And look that up in the dictionary if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't know what a nonce is. Gary Glitter. This happens to so many people. Like I say, we get caught up in the good intentions so much and the apologies and that I shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. And I'm so holy, just forgive me. We get so caught up in these things And we want to help, and we generally want to do the good human thing. And these people who can take advantage of us see that. They see that we want to be the helpers, we want to be the good people, and they see those people, and that's when you get taken advantage of. That's when they get you. And everybody knows. Like, I mean, that's how you get taken for a ride. If a child can get taken for a ride, then obviously an adult can get taken for a ride too. Even the Beatles. If it can happen to the Beatles, it can happen to anyone. It happened to the Beatles. People are notorious for searching for their paths in life. Like I say, most people don't go from A to B. It just doesn't happen. Spiritual, creative, seeking sobriety, seeking the truth, seeking quietness of the mind, quietness of the body, just seeking quietness in general, just to get away for a general retreat. Not everyone goes, like I say, on the same path, and many people choose many different paths, and the Beatles did. They chose to go to a little bit of curiosity land, and like I said, not all who wander are lost. Maybe some people are just bitten by the curiosity bug, and the Beatles definitely were. They were curious after George Harrison's girlfriend, Patty Boyd, went to a Maharishi transcendental meditation kind of retreat meeting, and she told George Harrison all about it, and he got all excited, and he told the rest of the Beatles, and they thought, this is exciting. So they joined Maharishi and his band of merry men, and some of the the Rolling Stones and some other notable personalities for one of his seminars, and got signed up for one of what I call his summer camps. They followed him, like I say, this giggly little guru. They followed him. He was quite charming. They were quite taken by his personality. And they were quite depressed by the death of their their manager, Brian Epstein. He'd passed away. They were kind of looking for something else, and a higher meaning, a higher truth, higher purpose. He wanted to do some songwriting. So they escaped to this ashram in India, in Rishikesh, in the foothills of the Himalayan mountains, with the giggly guru himself and a lot of other friends in tow. They had Donovan, they had the Beach Boys' Mike Love with them, they had Patty and Jenny Boyd, they had Mia Farrow and her sister Prudence Farrow, just to name a few people. This all happened in February of 1968. They went to go study transcendental meditation, like I say, basically at this ashram that was built on 14 acres of jungle in 1963. And you know who did it? It was Doris Duke, who was a tobacco heiress from America. She gave a $100,000 donation to the Maharishi's Foundation, and they built this huge, basically, summer camp for cultivating consciousness and mindfulness and transcendental meditation. Now, the Maharishi preached love, kindness, letting go of your ego, abstinence, and things like that, like most gurus do. All the gurus say, don't do this, abstain from this, abstain from that, don't touch this, don't touch that, I'm perfect, I don't have these earthly desires like the rest of you, I'm better than you, I don't feel lust, I don't feel wanting, I don't need these earthly possessions, I don't need these things, and most of these people, have a lot of money, and you do see that they do like these earthly possessions, and one day, the song Sexy Sadie, Sexy Sadie, what have you done? That Beatles song was written, and kind of around the same time, the Beatles kind of became aware and conscious of the fact that just like all self-made gods and gurus and teachers, that the Maharishi was human. And he did not preach what he practiced, like most gurus and teachers and all those kind of people do. Mia Farrow was actually sexually assaulted by the sexless guru, and it was the inspiration behind Sexy Sadie, because the Maharishi actually tried to kind of like backpedal and make excuses as to why it was kind of her fault, because she kind of came around and came along as a temptation. She came around to turn on everyone. You know what I mean? And the Maharishi couldn't resist her, and it was all her fault. So the Beatles kind of saw through the bullshit, and they bounced. Besides, Ringo really didn't like the food over there in India. Ringo had a kind of a wonky stomach, and he didn't like what they were serving. So they later made comments and said they made a major mistake trusting the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and they had been in a bad spiritual spot since the death of their manager. And again, this is how and when folks get you. When you're at your your lowest, most vulnerable point, and you're looking for answers. And lo and behold, these people have got the answers for you. Remember, these people only have power and profound influence, like I say, if and when you give it to them. And when you give them permission to use it and abuse it they will. And if you give them an inch, guess what? They'll take a mile from you. And if you give them $1, they'll take 20 because they're human. They're not gods. They're not, they're not elevated to God status unless you hand them that God status and give them that gold star and give them that cookie and give them their narcissistic fill for the day, the week, the month, the year. Who knows what they're feeling? Again, remember, these people are human. So again, if you want to pray, pray. Absolutely. If you want to worship, worship. But please, if you're going to follow, don't follow blindly. You know what dogmatism is. Don't be dogmatic about this. Follow that light. And don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody that touts themselves as a guru or a master, the teacher of something. Unless you really prove it. Prove it and then trust them. Now, I will catch up with you guys on another mini episode of 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast, as well as Beards and Bitchin'. You guys all know that I'm a cult survivor, so these topics are very near and dear to this little heart. Like I say, be careful out there. It's a dangerous, it's a bad man's world out there. It's a bad world. And be careful, or they'll get ya. So, beware, like I say, and be wary. You know where to catch me. I am on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram at 21st Century Rocker Mom. I'm on TikTok at the same 21st Century Rocker Mom. And if you want to see where I am, you can click my link tree in my Instagram little bio there in the bio, and you can find out my YouTube channel, which is Tandy Candler channel, which is probably where you're watching me right now. You'll be able to find me on podcast again once the studio is built. But until then, enjoy these short little episodes, and the standalone episodes of Beards and Bitchin' will be on there as well. Check them out. I'll check you guys on the flip flop. See y'all soon when we take another deep dive on 21st Century Rocker Mom podcast. Shorties.